A simple statement or block statement can be executed a controlled number of times using loop statements. A for statement is a loop statement that is typically used when a statement or block statement is to be executed a determined amount of times. Let's take a look at the skeleton of a for statement. A for statement begins with the reserved word for. Next, in parentheses, we set the loop parameters. These parameters will always be typed in this exact order, and each parameter is separated by a semicolon. Here is an example of a for loop to better understand its structure. The first parameter is called the initialization expression. This is where we initialize a variable to act as a counter for our loop. In this example, we initialize an int variable that we will call I to 0. I is often used as the variable name in the initialization expression of a for loop. Next comes the termination expression. This is essentially a Boolean expression that will be evaluated to determine whether or not the contents of the for statement are executed. Here we have I is less than 5, meaning continue to loop this code until I is greater than or equal to 5. Last, we have the increment expression. This is where we set the operation to be performed on the variable set in the initialization expression after each statement or block statement within the for statement is executed. Note that we do not have to increment this variable. That is simply what it is called. We can decrement, multiply, divide, or perform any other operation on the variable. In this case, we will increment it, and we will do it by using the increment operator. It is important to point out that the initialization expression I equals 0 in this case is only executed once, whereas the termination expression is evaluated prior to each iteration of the loop, and the increment expression is executed after each iteration of the loop. So the statement or block statements within this for loop will be executed a total of 5 times. The first time the for statement is encountered, the variable I will be set to 0. Next, the value of the variable I will be compared to 5. Since 0, the value I is currently set to, is less than 5, the contents of the for loop will be executed. And after that, the variable will be incremented by 1, since the increment expression is I++. Now I equals 1, and I will be compared to 5 again. Since it is still less than 5, the contents of the for loop will be executed again. Then I will be incremented by 1 again, and this process will continue until I is incremented to 5, in which the termination expression will evaluate to false, and the flow of the program will shift to the statement following the for statement. Let's look at this example in Eclipse. Let's simply add code to print out the value of I each iteration of the for statement. Also notice there is a printline statement right before the for statement and right after the for statement. To get a better understanding of the for statement, let's set a breakpoint at line 6 and run the program in debug mode. Let's clear the console of this alert. The program has paused at the breakpoint, so let's step using F6, and we could see the string before the statement is printed to the console. Now we are paused at the for statement. Looking at the variables here, notice we do not see any other than args. However, when we step again, I is set to 0, and we enter inside the for statement, since the condition set in the termination expression evaluates to true. If we step again, the value of I is printed to the console, 0 in this case, and the flow of the program returns to the top of the for statement. Notice I has not been incremented yet, but if we press step again, it is, and now it has a value of 1. And since 1 is still less than 5, the flow of the program goes inside the for statement. Pressing step again, the value of I is printed to the console, and once again we return to the top of the for statement. If we continue to step until I is incremented to 4, you can probably guess what will happen once we press step again. Notice 4 is printed to the console, the flow returns to the top of the for statement, and when we hit next once more, we jump over the body of the for statement to line 12. That is because the value of I finally reached 5, and at this point, the termination expression, I is less than 5, will no longer evaluate to true because 5 is not less than 5, it is equal to 5. Also notice the I variable is no longer listed on the variable list here. That is because the variable is local to the for statement and not recognized by any code outside of the for statement in which it was used. Pressing step again, the string after for statement will be printed to the console as the flow of the program has passed the for statement. And if we press step once more, the program ends.